I'm Lawrence, and I'm a filmmaker. And this is.
I'm Michael. I'm also a filmmaker.
And I'm Yale. I'm also a filmmaker.
And we are here because we feel compelled to do this art form that takes an enormous amount of time and adds strain and financial woes. And it's riveting and amazing. And we're here to talk about how it impacts us as individuals, as artists, and as parents. We all have young families. And so I'm personally so excited because this is something I've been thinking and talking about for 6 years of just how hard it is to be a creative with young family, with young children to take care of. So I'm really excited. Thank you guys so much for joining. Um, this is going to be fairly casual. This is not my normal day job trying to host things. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to at least introduce the who we are. We all have films that are screening at an amazing film festival called Dances with Films. And we are all in the Dances with Kids section by pros. So we are professional filmmakers who have made family-friendly films, and it's going to be played at a time when our children can attend, which is amazing. It's amazing to have a weekend slot. And I goaded these two awesome guys into chatting about what it's like to make movies and also be parents and partners and trying to support a family. So with that, I wanted to start, Michael, why don't we start with you? Why don't you introduce us to your film that's screening at Dances with Films? And also, I kind of want to know, when did you make it? When did you start working on this? And then a little bit of how you managed to do it while raising your kids.
All right. So my short film is called Captain Princess. It is only 6 minutes long, but it's about two sisters who have imaginary space adventures inside of their cardboard box. But once you go inside of their imagination, it's, they're in outer space in like the deck of a Star Trek style spaceship, but it's all built out of cardboard and arts and crafts supplies that like children would have access to. And then in the story, the older sister goes to a birthday party that is no siblings allowed. So Lois, the younger one, has to stay home alone, and she has to kind of figure out how to play on her own because usually her big sister is like the big idea maker and leads all the games. And I wrote this, well, we shot it last year in spring of 2024. I basically, for my work, I start getting very busy in like end of April, May, and then that continues through the year. But the beginning of the year is very much like my time to do whatever I want. And sometimes I've taken other jobs, and sometimes I've worked on personal projects. And uh, last year, I was noodling with this idea and shared with my producing partner, who really liked it and thought that we could do a fun proof of concept either for a kids show or a feature film that's still oriented towards kids, but a larger project. So we shot it last year, May of 2024. My two daughters play the two little girls in it. We shot it one day at my house and a second day at my friend's house out in Santa Clarita, who had a big empty garage, and we could build this like giant cardboard set for the spaceship. And then over the course of the next year, I basically, between working my jobs to pay the bills, taking care of my family, doing all like the school family responsibilities, and then also my friend Anthony and I, he did like the first edit, and then he handed it off to me, and I did all of the animations. There's like, it's very mixed media. So I have like miniatures in it that were on blue screens. I have animations that are hand drawn. I have animations that look like claymation. There's like all these different elements kind of all brought in together. There's puppets. There's like all sorts of weird stuff. I built a world out of Legos, so but it was all fun stuff that I could like do with my kids over the course of the year while we were slowly animating and editing and putting it all together. And then we finished it up early in the year of 2025, and I started sending out to festivals, and Dances with Films was like one of the top ones on my list, partially because it's one of the few festivals I found that had a program specifically for children's content that was made by professional filmmakers. Most kids fests, they want kid filmmakers, which is awesome, but I obviously don't qualify for. Um, And then it was in Los Angeles where we live, and like the girls could go and they can invite their friends from school and like see their short film that they made with their dad premiere at the Chinese theater, which is like amazing. Yeah, and so then luckily we got the news that we got in and been busy ever since getting ready for it.
It sounds awesome. I can't wait to see it. It sounds great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for that. Yeah, I'm gonna same question to you. When did you tell us about your film and started working on it and how it integrated with your family?
Yeah, it's funny because I think this was one of those projects that I had always had the idea of for a long. I had the idea like in film school that was basically in Judaism, there's this concept that if you drop the Torah, you fast for 40 days. It's is considered a failure by all who are present there, and the person who does it, it's like the worst thing that could happen. And when I was a kid having my bar mitzvah, I was an anxious kid, and I had this like nonstop fear that I was going to drop the Torah at my bar mitzvah. I didn't. Everything was fine. But when I was in college, I was like talking to a buddy about like ideas we've always wanted to turn into films, and I was like, I've had this idea since I was a kid. Like I wanted to be a filmmaker my whole life, and this was just one of those ideas, this anxiety like that I'd had since I was little. And I'd written a draft of it in college called like 40 Days, something along those lines, very much from the kid's perspective of like this anxiety leading up to his bar mitzvah. And then it just kind of died on the vine, like things do when you're in college and you don't have any money and you don't know how to figure anything out. And then, you know, almost 10 years later, less than 10 years later, I don't know. I was in college less than 10 years ago, but last year, I was just found out I was having a son. I knew we were having a kid. I didn't know it was a boy or girl. I found out it was a boy, and it kind of set me like spiraling for a second because I was like, huh. I think I thought it was a girl for some reason, and then all of a sudden I found out I was having a boy. I was having a boy, and I was like, oh my god, I'm thinking about all the anxieties that like boys have. And I was thinking about myself, my own bar mitzvah anxiety came back to me. And then it kind of like stuck on this thing that maybe there's something about like relationships between fathers and sons, I think everywhere, but also Judaism has this built-in thing of like Abraham told to sacrifice his son Isaac, and then all of a sudden, like my father and I had this back and forth when I was a kid. I was like, I'm gonna be a rabbi, and my dad was like, God's not real. This like a little back and forth when I was a kid about it. And my dad with his father had become an Orthodox Jew, and my dad didn't believe in God. Like it was this whole. I just was fascinated by fathers and sons in Judaism. So I started writing the concept, renamed to Unraveled. That was basically in the lead up to his bar mitzvah. His father and his mother have had a divorce. His mother is remarried to a non-Jew and just had a new baby. And his father is becoming more and more orthodox by the day and putting all this pressure on him to embrace Judaism as like this big thing in his life. Meanwhile, he's having recurring nightmares about dropping the Torah and ruining his life. Anyway, so that was the premise we went in with. My son was born a couple months before we started filming. We filmed in August of last year, so a little less than a year ago, and it was a lot. It was a 5-day shoot. It was pretty intense. So, like I wanted it to be my like proof of being good at filmmaking piece. Like I wanted it to like look good, and I put a lot of money into it and dragged my whole family into it. My son makes a very brief appearance in it. My wife's in it, and yeah, that was the experience.
So I suppose I should introduce my film. I realized I didn't do that. This is our second take doing this because the other service crashed in the middle and we don't know if we lost everything. And normally I record a backup, but that time I didn't. So my film is called The Rocket Man, and I actually filmed it in 2006. And the story goes like this. It's about a young boy who has to he's suspended from school and visits his father's office for the day, and he discovers a terrible secret. And it's about loss, it's about saying goodbye, it's about growing up, and it's told in parallel with his favorite storybook character, the Rocket Man, who's on a one-way mission to save planet Punwarg, which backwards means grown up. So anyway, they're both on a one-way mission to growing up. So just to sum up, so I have two children, 10 and 3. Michael, I think you have two children, 6 and 8, if I'm not mistaken,
Correct.
right? And Yale, you have a 15-month-old and you have another on the way. So we're different. We're all at different sort of parts of the journey. My sort of next question. So yeah, this may not be as applicable to you, but Michael, I really love what you said about that your children are part of the project. Is that something that you've done?
Mm-hmm.
Have you done creative projects with them basically for a while, or is this kind of a first sort of step into that?
This is the first big thing that we did. So I don't know. I'm always inspired by like what's happening in my life. And if you were to ask me if I was going to make a kids project, like back when I didn't have kids, I would have been like, no. I make like absurd, very not safe for kids comedies and like stuff like that. I was in like a sketch comedy YouTube group, and we did all these things, and then but still, I just always, whatever is happening in my life is always a cause for inspiration for me. And then during the pandemic, we are all living together, and like just the four of us, and I started drawing a lot, which was something I always enjoyed as like a hobby when I was younger. And my wife saw what I was doing and was like, "Did you draw that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And over the course of that, I started writing. It was kind of like my creative outlet for that period was I was writing and illustrating a webcomic called The Quarantine Kids that was all very derived from, I mean, I had took some creative liberties obviously, but like very much derived from like being quarantined at home by myself with, at that time, a 2 and 4 year old.
2 and 4. I was gonna say that. Okay, crazy.
Yeah, we joked that we were like, it was the perfect age because they're like young enough where they basically just don't even remember it anymore. But it was a lot for us. And then, and then we started coming out of it a little bit, and the kids started going to school again. And my wife's a wedding planner, which means that when she's working, like if she's gone on the weekends. So you have a lot of weekends with dad. And it's just just to kind of like bond with them and like let them know what I do and how it works. Like we did a couple things. We did one like jump rope video that I literally just shot on my cell phone with them like jump roping, and I got like the various shots of like their feet going over the thing and insert shots, and they're like, "Why do we have to do this like 6 times?" I was like, trust me, like I'm put it together and then you'll see." And then I showed them, like, this is now look, I've edited it together, and I got the shot of Lois, and I've got the shot of McLean, and I've got the insert of your feet, and we've got this wide establishing shot, and and kind of like just to help them kind of understand, like, this is what I do. So like when I leave and come back, and you're like, what do you mean you were working on a TV show? Like, what does that mean? Like, this is how we make them. And then when getting ready for this project, I had a couple ideas that didn't involve them for like projects I wanted to do, but the one that involved them just seemed like so feasible. It was like, well, we'll all be on set, and like my wife will be there, and she's very supportive and very film friendly, and so she's credited as child welfare in the credits because she was always on set making sure they had their snacks and or being safe and stuff like that. But yeah, and it was kind of a fun thing to do for all of us. And I think definitely my older daughter's more into it. She's like doing the school play now, and she kind of got like a little bit of a bug from it. I think my younger daughter, we'll see. She doesn't seem to have as much interest. She's kind of like, yeah, that was a fun thing to do with my family, but I don't know how much more she's going to pursue it. We'll see. Like when we were talking about the process of how we were going to shoot it, because there's a life-sized unicorn in it, like Calvin and Hobbes style. Her little stuffed unicorn turns into like a giant unicorn. And so in the story, when McLean goes to the birthday party, obviously she was like, "So wait, I'm not going to be in the half of the movie now." And I was like, "No, no, no, this is the best part. I'm going to put you in a big unicorn costume, and then you get to be like the unicorn for all the other imaginary stuff." And so she's like, "Okay." And then she starts talking to me, and she's like, "Wait a minute. So how are we filming this? Like, am I going to have to get in and out of the unicorn suit like all day long? I feel like we should do one day where I'm myself and one day where I'm the unicorn." And I was like, that's a very line producer thing for you to say. And that's exactly how we're filming it, actually.
Really funny. That's
Yeah.
so good.
I was like, look at your little schedule brain. It's great.
So is that a it's so funny because I want to ask questions, but I also want to I attempted that, but you know what? The lesson I just learned is that what I attempted was I tried to go for something a little bit too big, and then we didn't end up finishing it. And that's actually what. So we were writing a book together. We were writing this like Mount Everest thing, and it was like, oh, this will be great. Like I'll do something creative with my son. It'll be awesome. We'll draw pictures. And it did. We like drew. It was years of like coming back to it, and it got like 30,000 words written. It's like 2/3 of but like it turned into like an actual book. And then one day, I think I was talking about the film that's playing, and I was talking about working on it with him, and he said something really earnestly to me. He said, like, he wasn't trying to be insulting. He just said, "This is great. We'll start on this and we won't finish it." Like, but like he meant it like as like a, yeah, this would be great. This would be a fun thing to do. And that's kind of what was like, I have to finish this stupid short film that I've been working on. I filmed this in 2006.
Wow.
Now, I put it on hold for a while because it was half of it supposed to be kind of animated, and I just I didn't have the computing power to really, or the interest really, to sit there and try to do this rotoscope effect for every shot, and you can't just apply it to everything. So in 2019 was when the technology kind of caught up, and I was able to sort of do it. But still, since then, 6 years, I've been trying to get this short film re-edited and become a better editor, and but it was when that 2 years ago, I think, was when my son said that, and I was like, my journey has been a lot of, I'm a parent, I'm putting him first. And it was actually at that moment that it completely switched. It was like, the lesson I'm teaching him right now is not to finish things and to not chase after something. And so that's when it kind of switched to like, okay, I have to prioritize this. Not just, it isn't just for me, it is actually for him. I'm showing him, one, that I can finish, that it's important to finish things, and two, that it's important to chase after your dreams. But anyway, yeah, the lesson I learned was maybe I should have picked a 6 minute short instead of a book.
Yeah, anything I do with my girls, it has to be very digestible bites. Like, we did do a book together, actually, but it was one of those, I think the company's Lulu or something like that, but it's like a 6-page, like, they drew the pictures. I had the best handwriting, so I wrote the text, and then you mail it in, and then they send you like a bound book of your stuff. And it was like an afternoon activity.
So what would be your, this is, I'll ask Yale first, but this will be for Michael too. What would be your ideal, like, do your children enter into that filmmaking lifestyle for you? Like in 10 years, 5 years from now, do you see your children being a part of your filmmaking projects, or is it separate, or how does that sort of integrate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think my instinct is like not not too much. Like I put my son in this film, and I definitely wrote a scene for him, and I continue to do so. Like I have a project coming up soon, and like I write a scene for him. So like I do like the idea of baking my kids in to a point. I think for me, I want them to have the freedom to like go do whatever it is they want to do and not feel like this is the thing. Because I think for me, if anything, like my parents were really good at being like, oh, you're into something, like prove it. My parents were not like, they didn't like throw money at my hobbies or like get into any of the things I did until I like demonstrated this was serious. Like when I told my parents I want to be a filmmaker, it took a long time for them to take it remotely seriously. Like multiple film festivals, multiple projects, like submitting things until they were finally like, all right, okay, sure, you care about this now, we got it. Which I liked because it was like, at the time I didn't like, obviously, but in hindsight, I'm like, you know what, that's probably good to have a bar placed. It's like you can be into whatever you want to be into, but like you show us when it's serious and when it's not. My wife's an opera singer also, so she's very artistic, and opera singing is not like filmmaking. It's not something you like can do halfway. It's like years of studying romance languages and the whole thing. Constant coachings and whatnot. So I'm sure my son will naturally pick up creative habits from us. I think for us now, it's like, how much of a choice do you have? Like, if you are a traveling filmmaker, you bring your family with you. If you're pitching features, like, how badly do you want to get the gig? What if, what if you're torn from your family? Like it's like a weird, that dynamic is still weird. So right now I've been working from home for so long that like the concept of being on the move and like getting the dream is like a double-edged sword. It's like, oh, I've got all my features ready to pitch. I've got the big things I really want to make happen. And if they happen, what do you do with the family? How does it all work? That's still a big question mark, but no, I don't plan on like ushering my kids into filmmaking.
I definitely have no intention of like pushing them into it. It was kind of more from like, this is what I do and this is what I'm, this if you're interested in this and if you think it's fun, then I would like to work on it with you, especially since like I'm gonna be home. And there, you know, different aspects, like they would see me drawing planets for the Captain Princess and like trying to make them look like a kid drew it. And then they would walk up with a piece of paper that they had like drawn a bunch of planets and stuff and hand to me, and I was like, these are great. Can I put these in my movie? And they're like, yeah, that's why I drew them. And so then I would like scan. So like a lot of the outer space stuff, there's some stuff that I drew, but then there's also lots of stuff that they drew. And it's, you know, my wife and I both are very upfront with them. Like, if at any point this isn't a thing that you want to do, like, just let me know and we don't have to do it. If we do it and you don't like it, then you never have to do it again. But it's funny, I do watch them and like, because I moved out here from Minnesota. I went to film school, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any, you know, like family in the industry. I had no benefit of nepotism, but there is a small part of me that, like, for example, like when I watched my older daughter like start to figure out a schedule, which is very much what I do from, you know, producing background. And like I can, you know, a lot of my work was writing schedules and editing schedules and like figuring out timelines and all of that. There was a part of like dad in me that was like, ooh,
Yeah, yeah.
you can, you know, what I like, you can kind of figure out what I do, like you've got that in you.
So it's, and also like, you know, and not just even like, well, it probably feels like you can connect a little closer too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know.
it does. It gives you like a connection point, you know. And if when they're older, if they're like, Dad, I really want to get into the industry, I'll be like, great, I'll get you a PA job this summer, and then we'll see if you still feel the same way. But if they're like, I want to go to, you know, a trade school, or I want to, you know, do something else, then I'll be like, great, yeah, let's pursue that. Let's pursue what you want to do. You know, I'm not going to change what I'm going to do. I don't want to lose this part of me just because I have a family now.
He's actually during productions. We filmed this over the course of 5 days in August of last year. I was sharing a bedroom with him still. Like he was like 3, 4 months old. So like I was shooting all day. And then like at the end of the day, like I'd creep into my bedroom as quietly as possible because he's still in the room, like try not to wake him up. You know, and then try to wake up before him, you know. So it was definitely the actual production of it was very funny to like have. And I used like you know, like a lot of small films like this, like my house was like home base. Like I had people everywhere there. You know, I had like random crew members who were coming in from out of town in the house. Like the whole, it was a very funny place to have a baby. It was it's a lot.
Before I had kids, I was I was always working my like day jobs and variety TV, but then my friends and I were getting together every single weekend and shooting like sketch comedy and building our whole little community and editing super fast and posting it to YouTube. And so I kind of had already trained myself to have this like muscle memory of like working light and working fast. And then after my first kid, um, you know, it was, you know, obviously then like your priorities shift. And I wasn't doing that anymore. Like that group had kind of dissolved. We were all doing our own things. Some people are getting married, some are having kids, some were, you know, pursuing different avenues of their careers. And then I think, let's see here, my first one's probably like 14 months. She was a little bit more than a year. And my wife found out that she was pregnant with number two because they're 2 years apart. And literally, I was like, okay, we got this, but I got to make a short film. It was like, huh? I was like, just let me do one. I'll keep it simple. I'll keep it small. It's the last time I'm going to blow our money on filmmaking, I promise. And so I made one. It was called Customer Reviews. It was basically like an extended Yelp joke, but it got into a couple festivals. It went to like the Holly Shorts, like monthly screen series and everything. And then we had our second child. And then I was like, I mean, this is the first creative thing of my own, like short film or anything that I've done since then. So it's been, you know, a 6 year hiatus basically while I really focused on family. And, you know, and like, yeah, when they're sick, like that's got to be the thing. I remember I was working a job. I was working this horrible show. I won't name it because, you know, I don't want to get any of my friends in trouble, but it was just brutal. The hours were brutal. My department was like first in, last out. And then Lois got sick and actually had to go to the hospital with, I think it was like RSV. It was like a, you know, like basically kid gets a little bit of a lung infection. But it was terrifying because like my wife was at the hospital all day and I was, at a studio in Hollywood, like pretending to care about our rehearsal schedule while like all I wanted to do was like rap so that I could get out of there.
I know. Do you mind if I ask just real quick? Because I know, Laurence, you said you're an editor. Michael, like, what is your day job? Your day.
So I'm a producer for mostly like variety live specials. So when I was doing my own independent film making thing, the thing that would pay my bills was working in the script department for like the Grammys and the Oscars and like stand-up comedy and stuff like that. Variety live television. And then uh since that experience, and I basically was like, I need to get out of the script department. These hours are brutal. I can't do it. Then I focused more solely on producing and writing. And now I'm the co-executive producer of 3 shows that are all live. I do the Game Awards in December. We just did summer. They're all video game related. We just did Summer Game Fest 2 days ago. Actually, was the live show, June 6th. And then in August, I have opening night live, which is the first night of Gamescom, where basically we show a bunch of trailers. You have, a host who introduces the content. Game creators will come out and introduce new games or show new like gameplay footage. But yeah, those pay my bills, but also consume a lot of time, which is why most of my creative endeavors happen between January to April before.
Yeah, that's a cool paradigm to like, okay, like I'm gonna work my butt off during, put in the crazy hours, and then you're gonna have a few months in theory to do it. You brought up a really good point that I kind of want to touch on again, which was when you told your wife, I'm going to make a short, so but this is the last time, and then you had to have that conversation again. You're like, no, but this is the last time, right? So once you have kids and festival submissions and food costs, catering, locations, that money is no longer just your savings for you. Once you have a family, it's food on the table. It's a whole bunch of, and the last few years have been really unstable. I'm curious, what sort of advice do you have for anyone thinking of starting a family or currently, in the early parts of starting a family and trying to be like, how can I be creative? Yeah, how do those are very real conversations you have to have with a life partner. Hey, I want to spend thousands of dollars and not go to Fiji, but spend it on this thing that's going to make me happy or that's going to stress me out for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it is a conversation that you have to have. And it was a conversation that I had with my wife before I even broached the subject with my kids, because the moment that it was in their head, they were like, yay, let's do it. But, I had the benefit of, I hadn't done it for a long time. I used those 6 years since my last one to focus on my day job career. So, like, we had a little bit more stability. I also had the benefit of having a producer partner who I wasn't solely financially responsible for it. Like I put some money in, but she definitely put in more, and we worked together, and it was, it's a shared responsibility. But like, unlike the last one, which was just me being like, what's in my savings? What can I afford? This was, and I wrote it for what I had so that I didn't have to blow a bunch of money. You know what I mean? Like my kids are in it. It was on a weekend, so they're out of school. We're shot half of it at my house. The other half we shot at one of my best friend's garage, so no location fees. I called in every favor that I had accrued over like years and years of doing independent film, and amazingly, it was like, the guy who shot it, my DP, was an old friend, and he was like, "You don't have to pay me for my camera. Like I just own this camera, so like no camera rental." You know, there's a lot of people who just over years of working together and being friends, and then I luckily didn't ask for a favor for 6 years when I hit him up and was like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing with my family. Do you still have that Ari kit?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Yeah, you want it? You can borrow it for the weekend, like no problem." And I was like, "I can pay you a little bit," and they're like, "No, dude, don't, like,
Yeah.
like as long as you take care of it, I trust you, like it's fine." So I got a lot of,
Yeah.
I got a lot of freebies from friends and stuff who helped me out. And I wrote it specifically thinking like, okay, this is a thing that I can afford. Like I can
Yeah.
afford to go to Michael's and buy a bunch of arts and craft supplies
Yeah.
and build this set. I wasn't
Yeah.
buying, I bought a little bit of lumber, not,
Yeah.
still.
Yeah. And they'll go to use after too. The kids will, someone's going to use it in the house over the next
Oh
several
yeah.
years. Yeah. Yeah.
I still have a giant unicorn costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just threw out, we had a World War I costume in a garbage bag that literally moved with us for years.
So
And finally, when we moved in the last couple of years, my wife asked if we could throw it away, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, we can,
Yeah.
we can get rid of it." Yeah, yeah, how? I guess this is sort of for both of you. We'll start with you, Yale. Michael mentioned that it was 6 years since doing something creative, focusing on a career. I don't know, how does it eats away at me if I'm not doing something for me?
yeah, I think 100% like there's a need to be creative at all times. And so much so that like I have begun and yeah, I'm trying to say like the politically correct way of saying this. I don't want a job that's too creative because then I can't be creative how I want to be creative, if that makes sense. Like there are a lot of times where I worked in politics for years at a company called Crooked Media. It was a big, like I did a lot of work on Pod Save America. And it was a really creatively draining job and also a news job like that. I was just constantly in news and media and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't turn off politics and I couldn't turn off like, how do I take this political moment and make it a piece of content? But it was actively creative all the time. Uh, and I worked there for 4 years and I did not produce a single piece of creative content outside of that job. And that was like my early 20s in LA. First graduated from film school, like pretty much I graduated from film school in 2017. I was there at 2018 to 2022, basically. And during that time, like that was my life completely. And then I left and took a job that was so creatively boring and my brain like came alive and I was like, oh my God, I can write movies that I like and I can do all this different stuff. So that was like I got that piece of advice from a film professor. It was like that one special professor who actually does the job he's teaching you to do. And at one point he was like, don't be a PA, don't do whatever, like don't just try anything you can to get on set because then you're gonna spend your life on set exhausted and never do anything creative. Like find a job that gives you the most free time to just go do the other things you want to do. I've been really lucky since I left. I've been freelancing pretty consistently for a number of companies that take like there are long days, but there are days that like at the end of it, I'm like happy to go do a creative project. Like they're intensive, a lot of editing or some animating and editing, and there is writing, but it's not like I'm writing like stories about like a new piece of technology, not the kind of stuff that drains me. So if anything, I have so many creative projects that it's too many. I have the features I've finished writing, I have the features I want to write next, but I'm like, do I really want to invest time in the feature? Should I just go write another short? I think for me, the big math problem in my brain all the time is like, I know I'm going to be creative. I'm constantly negotiating, like, what is the most productive form of creativity for me now? Like, is it another short film? Should I try to like do something with the current short film I already have at festivals first? Or should I just go start making the next one? Should I be pitching exclusively features? Like I'm always doing that math in my head of like how to get from point A, which is where I am now, to like point B, which is like the job I want to have in 10 years. And then the family thing is just always with you.
Yeah, how many hours? I don't want to skip over Michael, but how many hours a week do you think that you have to dedicate to your personal creative projects? Like given 15-month-old. Yeah,
It depends on how close I am to like a D-Day kind of thing. Like I'm shooting a film in about a month, another film, it's gonna be a 2-day shoot, really small. Just because once I started submitting Unravel to festivals, I needed it to die in my brain because I can't live on just the anxiety of festival, whatever that might be.
yeah,
So I was like, I need another project today, like
yeah,
immediately, or else I will just be
yeah,
staring at like film freeway. I don't want to do. So I wrote another short that's like it's like 7 pages. It's really short. Unravel was like a 20-page short. So it was a
yeah,
bigger project, and this was
yeah,
like I was like, give me 5, 6, 7 pages. 2-day shoot, really small, no money. A lot of the crew from the previous film is just coming back because they're friends. So I wanted something small, and because that's coming up, I've kind of negotiated with my wife. Like I used to go to the gym at night. It's like I'm taking a couple weeks off the gym at night, and now I'm gonna go back into the yeah, I'm in the office all day in the basement, and then I come upstairs for dinner, do bedtime, come back downstairs into the basement for another 3 4 hours. Do that like 3 times a week. So it's probably like 12 15 hours a week maybe on creative stuff, depending on
Mm.
work. Like if I'm lucky and I have a project that is a 2 day project that ends up taking 1 day, then like, hey, another creative day. So
We have like a break. I mean, we it came to a point where we figured out when they were young how to get 4 hours of sleep per parent because just especially during sixth season, it's awful. But so one parent at least would get 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and then the other would just be on and get whatever they can, and then we'd switch. But now with two kids, we have literally a schedule. It's unbelievable. You should see, like basically, I get to work from 3:30 in the afternoon till about 11 at night, at which point I go right to bed and I sleep from 11 to maybe 3 or 4, and then I'm on for basically whoever needs to stay home, like because once one kid gets sick the other gets sick. It is like, and then we swap basically because I don't have as many phone calls I need to be a part of and stuff like that, so I could take. But like I don't know. I think it sounds like Yale, you have a bit more of a village. You've got your siblings and parents and everyone that lives around you.
But we made the choice to leave LA and move. At the time, it was into my parents' house, which we still are. So I have a very. This is a whole different argument in my family now. Is like my wife and I are like we obviously don't want to live in my parents' house forever. But I'm kind of at like I'm 28. I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's another year of this
Yeah.
where I make one more film and write a feature over the course of like another 12 months. We just tough it out. We're still young. We have
Live there as long as you could take it.
as long as we can, because I know at some point it gets harder. And like, currently we are single income, but we're not paying rent. So it's like it's a whole interesting thing. And then it's there's always like a ticking time bomb on every relationship choice you make of like, all right, be at my parents' house until we can't, and then we'll go wherever we go. But like, yeah, LA was tough to leave because I think for me it's like you feel so in it all the time. But I had stopped working in an office for over a year by the time we left LA already.
I could be literally anywhere. I have a tough shed in our backyard, and I've worked remote since 2020. Okay, sorry, Michael. I know we
No,
we
no,
sort of
it's
went on our
fine.
deep dive. Yeah. What do you get? Do you get that? Does it gnaw at you? Are you able to categorize and be like, all right, I'm in line producer mode, or I'm in producer mode, and I enjoy that, and I don't. I'm not going to go insane if I don't do something creative.
Yeah, I mean,
5 years.
absolutely. On my day job stuff, like I do get to have some creative input, but at the same time, I'm a couple notches down on the totem pole where it's like they'll hear my opinion, but it's not really my call creatively. But I always have to have outlets, and I know there's a while where I was just focusing on work and didn't really have any outlets, and that was quite depressing. But like that's when a lot of like the drawing would come into play. That's when I was writing and illustrating the webcomic Quarantine Kids, which I even did after we got quarantine quote unquote ended and like pandemic was still happening, but like, and then even once people started going back to work. And luckily with my industry, we figured out pretty quickly, or at least like the variety show, we figured out pretty quickly like how to work in virtual and digital formats. And I really only need to be on set like for 1 week for the show that would, because basically we'll usually load in like 5 or 6 days before the actual show. So myself and my like immediate team of like 3 or 4 people will meet like once every couple of weeks at a shared office, like a Nui house situation for like a half day, just so that we're all kind of like in the room together. But
Hmm.
that happens during school hours, and like
Hmm.
my kids are in school now, which helps a lot. They're also at the age where they have activities, which doesn't help a lot because it's like, but my wife and I, we've got a shared calendar. We're very like, okay, the music classes are on these days, soccer's on these days, like they're in after school on these days. And, if I do every drop off, she does every pickup. If I have a Zoom call for work that gets scheduled at 8 a.m., then I'm real quick like, hey, can we pivot? Can you do drop off and I'll do pickup? And it's just constant communication. Like if she'll have to go to a tasting, for a client at 3 in the afternoon in Malibu. And she's like, can you pick up the kids? Or, so there's a because we don't have any extended family here in LA, and most of our friends either don't have kids, have babies, or have like grown kids. We have neighbors. Luckily, we have neighbors who have kids around the same age. So if we're really in a bind, we can usually stick them at a neighbor's house for a couple hours. But yeah, we've just kind of had to figure it out that way through all like communication and. But yeah, creatively doing the comics helped a lot. I also still could always write, and like if I get an idea, I just would jam it out for a couple hours on a weekend, or I now have like the old man thing where I just wake up at 6 in the morning and my mind is working, and my kids aren't going to be awake till 7:30, so I'm like, well, I may as well go on my computer and Photoshop Captain Princess posters for an hour.
What age did that start? Because I get woken up on my son every day.
Yeah.
Luckily, I come like we are a family of sleepers. Like my wife is like, I need at least 8 hours, every single night.
Get
And
8 hours of sleep? Even
our
even
kids,
in the last 8
our
years?
kids have always slept pretty good. I hate it's
My kid
rough
actually
because I know a
sleeps. He
lot of
does.
parents who
Yeah.
don't.
I can't.
My kid sleeps. He goes to bed at like he's 15 months old. He goes to bed at like 7:30 and wakes up at 7. Like he does
Yeah.
the full like 11 and a half hours, which is great, but like I can't go to bed before 1 yet. Like my brain does not shut the fuck up
Yeah.
ever.
Now, to be fair, my kids will sleep in during weekdays, but on the weekends when they're supposed to sleep in,
Yeah.
that's when they wake up at 6 in the morning, and I'm like, this was my time. This was my quiet time.
This was my one day.
Yeah.
I remember. Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
I was saying, but yeah, I'll just jam out like writing for an hour, and I've got a Dropbox. If I get some weird idea, I'll jot the characters, maybe like a rough plot outline, throw it in my Dropbox, and then I won't think about it for months and months and months. Then it'll pop back into my head, and I'll look back at it. And I'm like, oh, I actually did a lot of the groundwork on this already. Okay,
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember when I was 25, I had a cousin who had 3 kids, and I remember very distinctly. He told me about his day, what his day looked like, and I was like, I was just like, there was shell shocked, I think is the only way I could describe it, of like listening to the day of what a parent goes through, because I think like there's yeah, and I think at this point probably, I mean, that obviously has become me, but it just was slowly over the years getting more and more used to it. The frog getting warmed up in the water. If I'm lucky, I get from 9:30 at night till 11:30 is the latest I should go before it starts getting unhealthy, right? And then because I need to wind down and then go to bed. But like, yeah, often like last night I was working till 1:30, whatever. I don't know. It's just crazy. So I think I just have one last question. When I was in grade 5, grade 6 is when I got like bullied. So I think that's when I got into kind of film as a creative kind of escape. And I'm curious if that was similar with you, if that's when you got into it, if it was a form of escape from the time where you weren't super thrilled with things going on. So that's sort of my question, is whether that's similar for you guys, or if that's not, that wasn't your experience.
Not particularly that. Like I'd say for me, it was. I mentioned this. I'm one of 10 kids. Like I grew up in this crazy house. It was crowded all the time. I think for me, it was more like an accident. Like I think my the family camera was just around all the time, and we were creative, and the camera started getting like I think I was first dragged into like my sister's school project with the camera, and she was like, "I'm gonna give you lines," and I didn't like the way she did it, and I was like, "I'm gonna make my own now." And we were a very competitive family, so like we just started like I basically just started dragging my 2 younger sisters into things, and then probably around like 12, like I made a big movie for my bar mitzvah. And then pretty much in high school, I was like, I'm a filmmaker, like I was joining drama club just to meet actors, to drag them into my projects. Like, and I feel like I was the type of kid who like probably should have been bullied, but I had 7 older siblings and I like knew pretty nicely how to diffuse things. And that's always like my line in like job interviews and everything. I'm one of 9, I have 9 siblings and I'm friends with all of them. is kind of how I'd put it. Like I think I could call any of them today and have a good conversation and it wouldn't be tough. Like which is like my superpower of like, I can run a set, I can talk to people, I can be around different opinions, I can talk to an actor without offending them. I can like, so I think for me, so it did come from my childhood, but I was pretty good at like diffusing a situation, and then kind of like meandering my way through difficult waters. And also
Yeah.
like I remember specifically like there being like an asshole in high school, like popular asshole type who I was like, we should make a movie together. And he was
Yeah.
like then my best friend. You know, I would
Same
like
thing.
drag an asshole kid into a project and like things went well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think it was more from it was like a cool way to communicate and drag people into my power trip probably.
That's actually, yeah. In high school is when I discovered you could if you wanted to be closer with someone, you just cast them in your movie, and then now you're
Yeah.
working
Oh yeah.
together. Yeah, it was amazing.
Joined drama club and was like, I don't even want to act. I just want to like direct movies. And they were like, oh, cool, awesome. You're more than welcome.
Michael, how about yourself? How did you get started with this whole thing?
I mean, for me, I mean, I had I feel like a standard level of bullying and whatnot. On the receiving end, I wasn't the bully. Nothing extraordinary, but like like I can remember like a couple things in third grade, and especially a couple few things in junior high. There was one group of guys who would single me out every once in a while, but that was a lot of where I developed kind of my sense of humor. I was able to diffuse situations a lot just by being the funny guy. Um, but I started writing when I was in like third grade. Um, but like it was before like being a filmmaker for me, it was always storytelling. I loved reading, I loved writing, and I loved the movies. Like that was like my, like I loved going to the movies. My mom loves the movies. That was a thing we always did together. My dad and I, because he lived in a separate state, so like we didn't always connect on a lot of the same stuff, but we would connect on like action movies. Like that was a thing that he knew. Like if he put on like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, like I was there with it, And then meanwhile, my mom is like taking me to like artistic and like like heartfelt dramas and stuff like that. And obviously then like lots of kids movies, and I just loved movies. And then when I was in high school, my friends and I started getting into, well, I guess junior high, we started like talking about making movies. I mean, like, wouldn't it be cool if we could like do this? And in high school, drama clubs were more available. So we had theater, and I think it was my freshman year of high school. One of my best friends, his dad could do like product testing for Walmart. So he got a super VHS camcorder, like checked out over the weekend to make sure that it works. He just gave it to us, and we filmed stuff over the weekend. And then our school library, not even our school library, like the Minneapolis public school, like central library, had an Avid system. And so we would film everything on Super VHS, and then we'd have to like go downtown, and like no one else even knew it was there, how to use it. But we like figured out like how to edit on this like crazy Avid machine that was like in the basement of a public school library. And then we started making short films in high school, and my short films that I did combined with the theater stuff that I was doing was enough to get me into a film school for college, and kind of just like went from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just one last little thing. I'm going to tell a quick story. Basically, the prompt to the question is sort of a crazy story or time when you were either making your own movie or working in our entertainment industry that is so specific to being a parent. So I'll give an example. So when my second son was born, I was wrapping one show. He was born early. So I was supposed to be wrapped and onto the next show, but there's an overlap sometimes. So I happened to be on two different TV shows for these two overlapping weeks, which is the same time that my son was born. Now, the first show was aware that my son was being born, and the second show, I was so excited for the job and for the level of show that I hadn't told them yet that we were pregnant, because my wife was pregnant, because I didn't want to lose the gig. And two, because we were going to hire a night person to help. Just, I was like, I need to work. I need to focus. I cannot succeed at this job on 4 hours of sleep every day. I can't do it. Those first 3 months are insane. They're just unbelievably insane. So I didn't tell them. that I had a newborn that was on the way, but he wasn't supposed to be there for 5 more weeks. So in theory, I was like, okay, I've got a little window where I can build rapport, get good with the team, and then maybe I can say like, hey, heads up, it's not going to impact anything, but you know. Anyway, that all went sideways because he came 5 weeks early. And I told you the one day was the day of the circumcision, which was I had to run home to deliver a stage file. I decided to bring my laptop and my phone, my mobile hotspot, and in case I needed to do something else in the afternoon, which I did, at which point we did this, the circumcision happened. In the afternoon, I'm sitting in the hospital lobby, remoting into a computer to take care of something else on the second show. And it was kind of amazing, but also like, I don't know how to explain that to anyone else. One, just in terms of the industry of like what kind of the expectations are, but also two, of like trying to balance like you. My wife is unbelievably understanding, and my other family's unbelievably understanding. But on its surface, that looks ridiculous. But my son was born, and I'm in the lobby sneaking in 30 minutes, 40 minutes of work so that I can get paid for the day, right? Because you don't really get days off. You can't just take time off. You don't get like vacation days. So that was sort of a surreal day where I had to do two pockets of work on two different TV shows. One TV show was not aware of my child who was born. One was and didn't care. Yeah, I don't know. So that was my sort of surreal parenting, working in the entertainment industry while being a parent. I'm curious if any of you guys have any like times where you have to squirrel away 15 minutes of editing while you're feeding one kid on something, you're on a laptop, and I don't know.
I mean, I've definitely taken a fair amount of Zoom calls in my car parked outside of the school. Like, and like I'll know when the call is scheduled, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna get to their school 30 minutes early. So I got a good parking spot and I'm in the car doing my Zoom call, talking to people, and then, oh, I gotta wrap this up because I gotta go pick them up right now. I mean, I will say, I mean, yeah, there was the one time that I told you guys about when my youngest was in the hospital and I still had to be working the show and all I wanted to do was leave. And like that was definitely a very stressful period, but that was also kind of the period where I was like, everything that I'm working on is so, as much as I love it, bullshit, and like, pardon my French, but it's like we're just making stuff for people to watch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're not, it's like when I was a young filmmaker, I was like, my movie's going to change the world. And now, as an older filmmaker, I'm not that old, like as in more mature filmmaker, I'm like, my movie probably won't change the world, but I think it'll be fun and I think it will like touch some people and they'll enjoy it. And so now I take that experiences with me and that kind of point of view with me a lot. Like when I'm working and my post supervisor sends an email being like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I know I had this deadline, but my kid got pulled into, a thing, and now we got to go to this appointment, and I'll be home by this point." And I'm just kind of like, that's fine. If you like, I know that you're gonna send the thing that we need. If you send it to me at this arbitrary 5 p.m. on a Wednesday deadline that we picked, like, but I don't get it until Wednesday at 10 a.m., like that's fine. Like that doesn't affect anything, obviously on a live show that timetable gets less and less comfortable the closer you get to the live show. There is a certain point, but then at that point you have backups and you have people like, by the time we get
Mm-hmm.
that close to the show, my, for the example of my post supervisor has an editor with her. So like if she does get pulled into a personal thing, we know that he can do it,
Mm-hmm.
and like you have
Mm-hmm.
those kind of redundancies built in so that if somebody gets, because everyone has to live lives and no one, and crazy stuff happens. Someone could be in a car accident, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like life happens and you can't prioritize. I don't think you can prioritize, especially your day job filmmaking over, you know, just like your actual life. And even with this short film, like doing all of the organization and getting like the costumes and the sets and the blah blah and all this. If one of my kids had been sick that weekend, I would have just pushed it a weekend. Like it would have been a
Yeah.
huge pain in the ass, but like, 'cause I would have had to reschedule everything and ask my buddy Tom to keep a spaceship built in his garage for another week or two. But like ultimately, we would have figured it out.
I have a little PTSD. I probably need to get help with that. I whenever the kids get sick, I'm like, I feel it. I'm like, oh God,
I feel the fear because I don't want to get sick, and
mm,
I don't know how it happens. Like my family just like rolls through. We're not all sick at the same time. It's like one person gets sick, and then 2 days later the next person, and then 2 days later the next person. But by the time the third person's sick, the first person is fine. So it's just like a rolling germ factory.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, but I'm usually the one who doesn't get sick, and they both get sick, and I'm okay. So so
Nice.
far so good. But we haven't started like preschool daycare yet, so I know it's over soon. It's gonna be I think we're starting in a couple months, and then I'll be like new world with the germs.
Oh, so if I could give advice to young parents, if somebody gave this to me, I would have really appreciated it. Our first son went to a place that it was cheaper, still good, but it was cheaper, but it had more kids. Brutal. That's why he got sick. So our other son is in like a child home care place, and it's like, the licensing's max 12, but usually there's like 8 or 9, so fewer kids. He still gets sick, and it's just nowhere near it's like October through March. It's just like you just survive it. You can't do anything else. You just survive it, and yeah, I think that was the thing was for me was I really wanted to have my creativity in my job. I've tried different tactics, but I haven't tried the 6-minute short film path. And I think that's worth pursuing, because I think that's
Achievable goals.
yeah, yeah.
As they call it in therapy, achievable
Yeah.
goals. You know you can do it.
I can't stop writing the long ones, man. I've got like I've got my long $10 million film pitches, and it's hard. It's hard to like separate like will this ever get made? How much time are you willing to spend on a project to some degree will never exist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot just hearing. I think that's a super practical thing that I'm gonna honestly try next, is like a one weekend, not like the fake one weekend where you got like an 18, 20-page script and you're like, I'm gonna do it in 2 days. It's 2 awful days, and then but like
Well, that was my
legit.
first draft of Captain Princess. It was basically a pilot. It was basically a full blown like 20-minute pilot, and I started writing out the schedule and like this shot list, and I was like, oh, this isn't possible. So that's when because I knew I only had them for the weekend. We were doing around school schedule and everything, and I completely rewrote it. I just like took a hatchet to it and made it this like 6-minute proof of concept, so that then hopefully it does very well to the film festival and people say like, hey, what's next for Captain Princess? And I can say, well, this is what it would be as a 20-minute episodic kids show. This is what it would be as a 90-minute movie.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching this. I learned a lot. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Yale. Super excited to see your films. Congrats on Dances with Films again.
Yeah.
Thank you for dropping in.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.